This video contains content that may disturb you and challenge your perception of reality. Ensure you're in a safe space before you continue. Hello, and welcome to Horror Flix. I'm Charlie. Tonight, we're going into 10 disturbing clips, all captured right before things went horribly wrong. Cameras are everywhere now, constantly recording. From our phones to security cameras on doors and buildings, they're a part of our everyday lives. But sometimes, they capture something much darker than we could ever imagine. These videos may make you question everything you thought you knew about the world around you. The line between the ordinary and the terrifying is thinner than you think. Grab a seat, stay close, and prepare yourself. It's about to get seriously creepy.
Plane crash tragedy in Nepal. At least 68 of the 72 people on board have been confirmed dead after the pilot lost control.
Flight 691, February 15th, 2023. A peaceful morning in Nepal. The skies were clear and everything seemed calm. But by the end of that day, the country would be reeling from one of its worst aviation disasters. At exactly 10:33 a.m., Yeti Airlines Flight 691 took off from Kathmandu, heading toward Pokhara. It was a short domestic flight, just 25 minutes. Routine, nothing out of the ordinary. On board was a 15-year-old ATR 72-500 aircraft, a twin-engine turboprop with a solid record. The pilots? Veteran flyers. Captain Kamal KC had flown thousands of hours. So had his co-pilot, Anju Katiwada. It should have been a smooth flight, and it was, until the very end. As they approached the newly built airport in Pokhara, air traffic control noticed something wasn't right. The landing gear had deployed, yes, but the aircraft's nose was tilted far too high. Then came the moment that changed everything. Without warning, both engines dropped to zero thrust. The left wing suddenly dipped. And just like that, the plane began to spiral. People on the ground watched in horror as the aircraft banged violently to the left and crashed near the banks of the Gandaki River. From inside, a passenger named Sonu Jaisi was live streaming the flight. His video caught the calm before the chaos, the smiles before the screams. And then came the crash, a nosedive into a gorge, followed by an explosion. Rescue teams rushed to the scene, but it was already too late. The plane had split in two. Flames consumed the wreckage. There were no survivors. All 72 lives were lost, but the question remained, why? Investigators later revealed that just before the crash, co-pilot Katiwada had requested flaps 30, but instead of adjusting the flaps, one of the pilots may have mistakenly moved the engine's power lever. This caused both propellers to feather, essentially cutting off all thrust. The plane wasn't flying anymore, it was falling. To make things worse, the pilots hadn't followed their routine checklists, and by the time the more experienced captain took over the controls, it was too late. Some say the unfamiliar approach angle at the new airport played a role. Others blame human error. But one thing's certain, this became the deadliest domestic crash in Nepal's history, and it was all caught on camera.
Also breaking this afternoon, we are learning the family of a 19-year-old woman who died of hypothermia inside a hotel freezer has reached a settlement agreement. You may recall Kanika Jenkins was found dead inside a walk-in freezer at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Rosemont back in 2017. Jenkins went missing during a party early in the morning of September 9th.
The story of Kanika Jenkins. It was Friday night, September 8th, 2017. When 19-year-old Kanika Jenkins went to a party with her friends at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Rosemont, Illinois. The party started late, around 11:30 p.m., in room 926. At first, it seemed like a normal night, just some music, drinks, and people having fun. Kanika had been drinking cognac, but her friend said she wasn't on any drugs. Still, something felt off. People at the party noticed she wasn't acting like herself. Some said she looked sad. Others noticed she kept sitting down after dancing for just a few seconds. She looked unstable, like something wasn't right. Later that night, she was seen walking through the hotel with her friends. At some point, they all said goodbye to her, thinking she'd be fine. That would be the last time anyone saw her alive. By early morning, Kanika's friends realized she was missing. They couldn't find her anywhere. In a panic, they called her mother, and she rushed to the hotel at around 5:30 a.m. She didn't wait. She started knocking on doors, walking through every floor, hoping to find her daughter. Her worry was growing by the minute. Eventually, a hotel worker got frustrated and called 911 on Kanika's mum. But she didn't care. She just wanted to find her daughter. Still, no sign of Kanika. The next day, her mother begged the hotel to show the CCTV footage, but they refused until police got involved and she was officially reported missing. At first, the cameras near the entrances and exits were checked. Nothing. She hadn't left the hotel. Hours of footage were scanned until finally they spotted her. There she was, staggering alone, looking completely out of it. She wandered through the hotel halls, clearly intoxicated. Police kept going through the footage. Then they saw something that made their heart sink. Kanika had wandered into the hotel kitchen. She looked lost. She swayed a bit, then turned left, towards the industrial freezers. Police rushed to the kitchen and opened the freezer. And there she was. Kanika Jenkins had died inside the walk-in freezer. Her time of death was estimated around 12:48 a.m. Sunday morning, nearly 2 days after she first went missing. The freezer was turned on and cold, and what made things even more disturbing was that she had to go through 2 doors to get to where she ended up. Both doors were said to have no locks and even had release buttons on the inside. So the big question was, why didn't she come out? There were no lights inside. She would have been in complete darkness. No cameras caught what happened inside. And to this day, no one knows exactly why she went in or what really happened in those final moments. The police said there was no foul play, but theories spread like wildfire. Some people believed she was running from something. Others thought there was more to the story that wasn't being told. Kanika's family never gave up. They kept searching, hoping to one day understand how their daughter ended up dead in a freezer alone, cold, and in the dark. 8. The mid-air collision. It was January 2nd, 2023. Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia. The skies were clear, the sun was shining, and families were out enjoying the new year. For one group of tourists, it was supposed to be a scenic helicopter ride over SeaWorld. Nothing but blue skies, ocean views, and happy memories. They boarded with excitement, cameras ready, smiling for selfies as the chopper lifted off. The air buzzed with adventure. From up high, everything looked perfect. Waves dancing below, people waving from the sand. For a moment, life felt surreal. But then came 1:58 p.m. Footage taken from inside the cabin shows laughter and calm, until the pilot suddenly stops looking ahead. A passenger reaches over and taps him on the shoulder. Something's wrong. He turns, but it's already too late. Out of nowhere, another helicopter, just taking off from the same SeaWorld site, cuts into their path. There's no time to react. In a terrifying instant, the 2 helicopters collide mid-air. The spinning blades of the departing aircraft shear off. Its rotor and gearbox violently detach. One chopper crashes hard into a sandbar below. But here's the horrifying twist. The one filming? They survived. Somehow, the pilot managed to wrestle back enough control to land the damaged helicopter onto the same sandbar. It was rough, it was fast, but it saved lives. Down below, beachgoers froze in disbelief. Families enjoying the shore rushed to help, as did nearby police and boaters. People clawed at the wreckage, trying to free the trapped and injured. Tragically, 4 people never made it out alive. A 40-year-old pilot, a 36-year-old woman, and a British couple, aged 65 and 57. 6 others were critically injured and rushed to nearby hospitals. Investigators launched into action. Early findings revealed that the helicopter in the air never acknowledged a taxiing call from the one on the ground. But whether that call was never made or simply never heard remains unanswered. What was supposed to be a peaceful flight turned into a fiery nightmare, all caught on film. A chilling reminder that sometimes disaster strikes from above, fast, hard, and without warning.
From Gujarat, a suspension bridge, which is originally century-old almost, but renovated recently and opened to public just 4 days ago, has collapsed in Morbi. Over 90 people have died. 500 people were on the bridge when the collapse happened.
7. The bridge that shouldn't have been open. It was the evening of October 30th, 2022, around 6:30 p.m, and the streets of Morbi, India were buzzing with excitement. It was the Gujarati New Year, and hundreds of families were headed to a local dance festival. To get there, many had to cross the famous Morbi Suspension Bridge, a spot that had been both a tourist attraction and an essential crossing point for over a century. The Morbi Bridge wasn't just any bridge. Built back in 1900 during British rule, it stretched about 755 feet long, but was only 4 feet wide. It hung over the Machu River, and while it looked beautiful, it was never designed for huge crowds. After being closed for repairs for 2 years, the bridge had just reopened only 2 days earlier, on October 28th. That Sunday evening, the bridge was packed. People crammed onto it, shoulder to shoulder, like sardines in a tin. The bridge was meant to hold 125 people at most, but that night, over 400 people tried crossing at once. To make things worse, some people decided to swing the bridge literally. CCTV footage later showed people grabbing the sides, rocking it back and forth like it was some kind of ride. And while it looked like fun to some, it was anything but safe. Then, in just a few horrifying seconds, the middle section of the bridge snapped. The structure gave way and collapsed, sending hundreds of people plunging into the cold, dark river below. Screams filled the air. Some held on to broken wires, others fell straight into the water. If you weren't crushed in the fall, you were now fighting to breathe. The scene turned into a nightmare. Locals at the riverbank jumped into action. Some formed human chains, pulling people out with whatever they could find. They didn't wait for rescue teams. They became the rescuers. Emergency services later arrived and continued the operation through the next day, October 31st. By the end, 135 people had died. Many of them were women, children, and elderly. The youngest victim? Just 18 months old. It didn't take long before blame started being thrown around. Turns out, the company that renovated the bridge never told government officials that it had reopened. That meant no one had done a proper safety check. The chief officer in charge of infrastructure said they had no idea it was open to the public. And yet, tickets were being sold. Guards were posted. It looked official, but it wasn't ready. 9 people were arrested: ticket collectors, security guards, and staff from the company that handled the renovations. They were accused of letting people on without permission, knowing full well the risks. The government stepped in and offered compensation about $5,000 for each victim's family and around $630 for those injured. But for many, no amount of money would make up for what was lost. That bridge should have been safe. It should have been tested. But instead, it became the site of one of India's worst public tragedies in recent years, all because people didn't take responsibility when it mattered most. The stadium that turned into a trap. On October 1st, 2022, in East Java, Indonesia, the Kanjuruhan Stadium became the center of a football tragedy no one saw coming. That Saturday, over 42,000 fans filled a stadium built for only 38,000. It was a huge game between Arema FC and their biggest rival, Persebaya. Arema lost 3-2, their first home defeat in 23 years. The loss didn't sit well with their fans. Many jumped the barriers and stormed the pitch, furious. Police and even some players were attacked. Chaos broke out fast. 5 police cars were destroyed and set on fire. The police tried to hold the crowd back with batons, but it was no use. Then they made a fatal decision. They fired tear gas into the crowd, a move banned by FIFA for a reason. Tear gas causes extreme pain, confusion, and panic, and in a crowded stadium, it became deadly. People ran in all directions, but most fled toward gates 10 and 12. It caused a massive stampede. Thousands pushed forward, desperate to breathe, desperate to escape. People were trapped, crushed, and suffocated. It was chaos from every angle. When the dust settled, 125 people had died, including 32 children. Countless others were injured. All of them had just come to watch a game. The FIFA president called it a dark day for football and a tragedy beyond comprehension. The league was suspended and the whole country was left in mourning. Indonesia had seen trouble at games before, but nothing like this .5, the final lap of Dan Wheldon. On October 16, 2011, legendary British race car driver Dan Wheldon took part in the 2011 IZOD IndyCar World Championship at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Dan had already made a name for himself in the racing world, with almost 3 major victories under his belt. He was confident, focused, and ready for another big win. But sadly, this race would be his last. During lap 11 of the 200-lap race, Dan was in 24th place. As he approached the second turn, a car just ahead of him slowed down after its tire made slight contact with another at 165 miles per hour. It was a small touch, but at that speed, it was enough to cause a disaster. Dan had no time to react. In racing, you're moving the length of a football field in just a few seconds. He tried to brake, but it was too late. His car went airborne, flying 325 feet before crashing hard into the right side catch fence. The crash was horrific. Emergency crews rushed in and he was quickly airlifted to the hospital, but the injuries to his head were too severe. Besides all efforts, Dan Wheldon was pronounced dead. The race was cancelled. Drivers, team owners, and fans were in shock. Instead of finishing the event, a 5-lap tribute was held in his honor. Amazing Grace played on the bagpipes. His car number, 77, stood alone at the top of the leaderboard. One final salute to a racing legend, the cliff, the selfie, and the secret. It was June 2018. Butterfly Valley, Mughla, Turkey. The skies were clear, the view breathtaking. But what unfolded that day would haunt the cliffs forever. 40-year-old Hakan Isıl and his 32-year-old wife Semra were were on holiday. Semra was 7 months pregnant. The couple had one plan: enjoy the stunning coastal view, take a few photos, and create memories. But not all memories are meant to be beautiful. As they hiked up the narrow rocky trail, people noticed something strange. The couple seemed off, unnatural. One tourist, suspicious of the way they lingered near the cliff's edge, pulled out a camera and began filming. What the footage captured still sends shivers. The two held hands, gazing at the sparkling Mediterranean below. Hakan then pointed to a specific edge, urging Semra, visibly anxious and afraid of heights, to follow. She hesitated, but he insisted. After all, it was just a selfie. Right? They sat near that deadly drop for 3 hours. Then the witness filming finally gave up and walked away. And that's when the nightmare struck. Moments later, Semra was gone, plummeting 1,000 feet to her death. Hakan calmly told a passerby that his wife had just fallen. But when people rushed to help, he stood still. No tears, no urgency. Even when her body was recovered, Hakan stayed inside the car, expressionless. Soon after, things got darker. Authorities discovered that Hakan had recently taken out a £40,000 life insurance policy in Semra's name, just before the trip. He didn't wait long to file the claim, but the payout was blocked when police opened an investigation. Digging deeper, Semra's family found more. Multiple loans taken out in her name. Hakan had been planning something for months, and the chilling part, he almost got away with it. If not for that haunting video footage and the eyewitness reports, this might have been labelled a tragic accident.
The hike, and then you get to the top. So behind you is effectively a cliff face, right? So you haven't got anywhere to go. So in front of you is the mountain ahead of you that's where the avalanche it happens, and it comes towards you. But there's nowhere for you to go, and you're never going to outrun an avalanche anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the main things that some of the comments have been saying online is kind of like, you know, why has he just stood there? Why isn't he running for his life? Why is he just filming? Which
Avalanche in the eye of the storm. July 2022. The rugged mountains of Kazakhstan. 27-year-old Harry Shimin from the Isle of Wight thought it'd be fun to take a scenic trek with 2 friends. After all, what could go wrong? They joined up with 7 others for a guided 10-day tour through the towering peaks. Day 7 arrived, the toughest day, but also the most rewarding. They were set to climb a full 1,000 meters to the summit. Spirits were high, the air was thin. The views. Unreal Harry, always eager for a view, had pushed ahead of the group. Alone, surrounded by snow and silence, something suddenly changed. A low, thundering sound echoed across the range. An avalanche. Harry grabbed his phone and began filming. At first, it looked far away, harmless, like it would stop before reaching him. It didn't. He turned. Behind him, just rock, no escape, nowhere to run. As the wall of snow came charging toward him, the last words captured in the video were, "Dear God." Then, impact, the avalanche rolled over them. But by some miracle, most of its force had already hit before reaching Harry's group. The snow had slowed, just enough to spare their lives. No one was seriously hurt. One woman suffered a deep cut to the knee. That was it. Harry stared death in the face and walked away. Not many get to say that, but he can. A brick, a moment, a tragedy. It was just a regular Tuesday, June 12th, 2012. Around 11 a.m., a man named Vadim was driving down a highway in Russia with his wife Olga and their baby in the back seat. Everything felt calm, ordinary. They were in their Audi A4, moving along the 11th kilometer of the road when they noticed a few large cargo trucks heading their way. These trucks were loaded with tons of bricks, about 16 tons, but the way they were packed, sloppy and dangerous. Then, out of nowhere, the unthinkable happened. One loose brick from a passing truck slipped out, flying through the air. Vadim had no time to react. The brick smashed through the windshield and hit his wife directly in the head, traveling at 60 miles an hour. Vadim didn't understand what had happened at first, but when he looked over, he was met with the most horrific sight. His wife's head split vertically by the force of the brick. The truck driver didn't stop. He had no idea a brick had even fallen. Olga was rushed to the Azov hospital, but after 2 hours of trying to save her, doctors pronounced her dead. Just like that, a normal drive turned into a nightmare. The driver of the truck was later arrested and charged under Article 264, which covers traffic violations resulting in death due to negligence. One moment of carelessness, one life gone. The death road disaster. This shocking case takes us to Bolivia's infamous death road, one of the most dangerous roads in the world, known for its narrow paths and steep drops. It was even featured on Top Gear back in 2009. The incident happened in December 2011 and was caught on video. A double-decker bus, packed with 50 passengers, was making its way across a damaged section of the road. A landslide had left the path incredibly risky, with barely enough room to get through. But the bus had no option to turn around or reverse, so the driver made a call. He told everyone to get off and wait while he tried to drive the bus across alone. At first, everything looked fine. The bus slowly inched forward as the passengers watched nervously. But then, it happened. One of the back wheels slipped on the muddy edge. The driver tried to speed up, hoping to save it, but the road gave way. In an instant, the entire bus plunged off the cliff, vanishing from sight. It was a 164-foot drop. The passengers ran to the edge, only to see the wreckage far below. The driver had died instantly. What was supposed to be a calculated move turned into a horrifying moment that left everyone in complete shock. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. The road lived up to its name that day. Life can turn on a dime, and these 10 cases are proof of how twisted and unpredictable the world really is. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, I see every single one. If you're into this dark side of reality and you're not subscribed, hit that button now. Until next time, stay alert.